with me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 2021 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series, where your man, Louie T, aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2021 NFL Draft using our grading scale. From 5 to 1, each pick will be assessed and given a grade, 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest for every pick made. And what we will do is at the end of that draft, we will tally up all of the scores, divide by the number of picks, and that will yield us an overall grade for that team's draft. This is also the you pick format, so simply be the first to leave a comment in the comment section of this and future videos stating 2 things: the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. Some examples would be Seahawks next, next Hawks, next Seattle, next C. You get where I'm going with this. As a matter of fact, the next team up in the series is none other than the Seattle Seahawks. And this was a very unique draft for the Seattle Seahawks because this isn't what we're accustomed to seeing from Pete Carroll and John Schneider and company. We're used to seeing them trade back, stockpile picks, and come out of the draft with every bit of 9, 10, 11 selections. This is a draft in which Seattle only had 3 draft picks. And again, I'm shocked at what I saw. And going into the draft, we knew they only had 3 picks. And they made a bunch of moves to try to fortify their team during the offseason last year, this offseason as well, and then in between as well. So obviously the Jamal Adams trade was a blockbuster last offseason. They gave up their 1, they gave up their 3 in 2021. So we knew they weren't going to have a first or a third. Then you had the Carlos Dunlap trade during the season to try to help them get over the hump. They needed a pass rusher. They go get Dunlap. And so that cost them a late round draft choice in B.J. Finney. So it ended up being, I think, a 7th rounder for the 2021 draft. So no first, no third, no 7th. And then you get to the offseason, you got the whole brouhaha with star quarterback Russell Wilson and him being a little disappointed in some of the moves being made and him not having as much input and them not doing enough up front to protect him. So they go out and they give up a 5th rounder for Gabe Jackson this offseason with the Raiders. And so voila, you now don't have a first, you don't have a third, you don't have a 5th, and now you don't have a 7th. And so it's amazing to see them come into the draft with 3 picks, but not make any moves to acquire more draft capital. Normally, in my mind, I was saying they'll end up with 7 picks because they'll move back 2 or 3 times, and they'll take those 3 picks, multiply them, and come out of this thing with 7 players. I was wrong. They just made their selections where they sat and they kept it pushing. I'm not mad at them because this is a team that's in a position to win now. And there's not a lot that they really need to do. They needed to add a couple of pieces, and they did. You know, you lose David Moore in the offseason. Okay, well, let's replace him. That's what they did in the draft. You need to upgrade the offensive line. They always need to upgrade the offensive line. So they do that. You lose Shaq Griffin in the offseason, need to replace him. They tried to do that. So, and they also went out and got a guy like Ahkello Witherspoon, who they think may be able to come in, a long athletic corner that, you know, the Seattle Seahawks love to work with, and maybe they'll get something out of him. So they didn't really need to do a ton. They got 3 draft picks. We're going to talk about those, break them down. But for a team that in the last 5 years, the amount of draft picks looked like this: in 2020, 8 draft picks; in 2019, 11 draft picks; in 2018, 9 draft picks; in 2017 and 11, and in 2016, 10. You're shocked to see them only have 3 selections. Anyway, let's jump into this draft. Won't talk your head off. We start in the 2nd round, as I mentioned. Didn't have a 1st round pick. 56th overall. Wide receiver out of Western Michigan, Dwayne Eskridge is the pick. One of my favorite wide receivers in this entire draft class. One of the fastest in this draft class as well. He's a blur. This guy is a speed demon in every sense of the word. And so I talked about losing a receiver in the offseason earlier and how you needed to replace him. Well, you're doing that here, and I feel like you're upgrading the wide receiver position if we're really being honest with one another. So this is a pick that I absolutely love here in Dwayne Eskridge. And again, you're not going to find many receivers in this draft class faster than Eskridge. I don't think anyone's acceleration in this draft class is better than his. I think there are guys that are on par with his. And you know, obviously Jalen Waddle has that 0 to 60. I think Eskridge is right there with him. I don't know if there's anyone else in this draft that has a better acceleration. There are other guys that are right there with him, as I mentioned, you know, like Jalen Waddle, for instance. But and another guy that I love, Elijah Moore. Those guys have that instant acceleration. Eskridge, though, it just looks different when you watch him on film. I'm not going to break him down. I've already done that. If you're looking for a thorough breakdown of Dwayne Eskridge, I will leave the link down in the comment section of this video. I will pin the comment there with the link to the Draft Prospects 101 video I did on Dwayne Eskridge earlier this offseason to give you a full, thorough breakdown of what I feel about him, his game, and what he brings to the table. But I will tell you this. You just got infinitely faster with an offense that was already ridiculously fast to begin with Russell Wilson at quarterback with speed, with DK Metcalf, who tried to qualify for the Olympics. He's so fast, and it's ridiculous. People tried to clown him about running and finishing in like 7th place or whatever. Are you kidding me? The guy is 6'4", 230 pounds, and he's running with these guys that are about 160 pounds. Are you serious? These guys are ridiculous freak athlete. So you've got him on the outside. You've got Tyler Lockett, who I think is one of the more underrated wide receivers in all of football. He can run as well. And now you're adding Dwayne Eskridge to that mix. Not to mention you've got Freddie Swain and all the other guys that you've accumulated over the last couple of years in the draft or as undrafted guys. You're loaded at receiver. You've got talent for days, and Eskridge is only going to come in and really fortify what I think is a good, strong group. David Moore was good. Eskridge has a chance to be great. So to me, this is a win for the Seahawks to get a guy this caliber in the 2nd round, late stages, similar to DK Metcalf. I feel like you're stealing here with Eskridge. I thought he would have been gone by the 56th pick in the draft, and the Seahawks were smart to not trade back because this is tremendous value here in the late stages of the 2nd round. Again, I'm not going to break him down, but I will tell you that right now he looks like Scotty Miller to me, a guy that has torn it up in the league for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers since entering the league. He's a speed threat, a guy that can get over the top of the defense. We saw it in the NFC Championship game right before halftime, getting behind Kevin King, catching a touchdown pass. It's what he brings to the table. I think when he figures it all out, puts it all together, and is able to get his route running to the level it needs to be, I think he actually looks more like Emmanuel Sanders. I think the finished product of Dwayne Eskridge will look like Emmanuel Sanders, a faster Emmanuel Sanders, if you can even imagine that, because Sanders in his own right has a ton of speed as well. So love this pick in the 2nd round, 56th overall. I feel like you absolutely stole. And for the Seattle Seahawks, 2nd round, 56th overall selection, wide receiver Dwayne Eskridge out of Western Michigan for me is a 5. This is an outstanding pick. Any way you slice it, you upgrade what was already a dominant offense at times. You did get a little stagnant towards the end of the season. A guy like Eskridge will continue to put pressure and stress NFL defenses that have to try to contain the Seattle Seahawks. There was a little point there where teams started to try to take away DK Metcalf. Adding in an Eskridge to go along with the Tyler Lockett is really going to make it even tougher to take away all the speed that the Seattle Seahawks can put on the field at one time. As we move on to their next selection, 4th round, 137th overall pick, cornerback out of Oklahoma, Trey Brown is the selection. You're talking about a 5'10", 185-pound cornerback. And so the question that you look at as soon as you see the size is this guy a nickel or can he play outside? And, you know, I ask myself that when I'm watching him because really at Oklahoma, he was primarily a boundary corner. He didn't see a ton of work inside. And I think the only way he survives at the next level is potentially inside. So there are some questions that we will have to answer. We'll talk about that as we break him down. But I will say this. Seattle has been known over the years for long, athletic, physical corners on the outside, guys that are 6'1", or bigger, you know, and long arms and athletically gifted guys going all the way back to the Legion of Boom. And you're talking about Dick Sherman, you're talking about, you know, all the guys that went through there, Byron Maxwell, who I don't think was actually a big corner per se. He seemed a lot longer than what he probably was. But, you know, obviously you go down the list of those guys and you see all of the size and all of the length that these corners had for Seattle over the years. Brandon Browner, all of those guys. Trey Brown doesn't necessarily fit that mold. However, I watched DJ Reed for the Seahawks last year after he came over from San Francisco and how well he played for the Seahawks. And he was a smaller guy, you know, at 5'10 or so, 5'10, 5'11. And I'm thinking the Seahawks are saying to themselves, maybe we can get that same kind of play out of Trey Brown. I don't know. We'll see. I think Ahkello Witherspoon is the guy that they're banking on, that they can get their hands on and transform him into a potential replacement for Shaq Griffin. But Trey Brown is an interesting guy. Let's jump into this real quick. 51 total games, 141 total tackles for his career, 8.5 of them tackles for loss, which is impressive for a cornerback. 2 sacks, 31 pass breakups, and 4 interceptions, 3 of which came in his final season at Norman for the Sooners. Strengths: tremendous athlete with speed and quicks to match. This is a guy that ran a 4.4 flat at his pro day, 4.27 short shuttle, which means he's incredibly quick and can change directions, 38-inch vert. So this guy's an athlete. You're not worried about the athleticism. You're not worried about the quickness, the ability to stop and plant, the ability to click and close and drive on a pass. You're not worried about any of those things. As a matter of fact, the next strength, outstanding click and close ability with limited wasted steps. He doesn't waste any motion, steps, or anything. He comes downhill. He sticks his foot in the ground and he drives on the football. He's there in an instant. So these are the kind of guys that have high ball production, or are, in the case of a Trey Brown, 31 pass breakups. These are the guys that are going to be around. There aren't going to be many opportunities for easy completions when this guy is up in the grill of a receiver, because he's able to stick his foot in the ground and drive on the football. Very good agility and speed to match. So you have the ability to come up and challenge someone because you have the speed to be able to run with them. Physicality shows at all times. That's the next strength. And what do I mean by at all times? In the run game, this guy is not afraid. I talked about the 8.5 tackles for loss. He's not one of those bystander cornerbacks who wants to watch from a distance like, hey, it looks like y'all got it. If y'all don't, I don't mind helping, but I'm going to stand over here and just make sure nothing crazy happens. No, he's looking to get in the fray. He's looking to make a tackle. He's not afraid. He'll be one of the first to show up at the party if need be. And so I love that about him. At the line of scrimmage, he's extremely aggressive, okay? Really aggressive, almost to a fault. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but I love it. And then down the field, he can be very physical, and that to me is going to be to his detriment as his career progresses if he doesn't make any changes. But he's physical, period, end of discussion. And I love that, especially for a 5'10", 185-pound corner. Usually you hear the word feisty when you get guys that size. I think that would be apt for a guy like Trey Brown. Dog mentality. Again, when you're a smaller corner and you're playing against, if he's getting matched up with DK Metcalf in practice, he's not going to shy away from the opportunity to chop a 6'4" receiver down to size. Like, this dude is not afraid. I'm watching him on film against Texas, against Colin Johnson, who if you remember, was at Texas, was drafted by the Jaguars. He's a 6'6" receiver that runs probably about 220, 25 pounds or so. Colin Johnson is humongous. This guy, Trey Brown at 5'10", is up in this man's grill, challenging him at the line of scrimmage and fighting him tooth and nail. Now, he didn't win every single battle. You don't expect him to, but the fact that he wasn't scared lets you know his mentality. 6'6" against 5'10", and he was ready for all of the smoke. So he's got a dog mentality, and that's going to bode well for him at the next level. Has ball skills and blitz capabilities. I talked about the 3 interceptions in 2020. He had 4 for his career, so he does have some ball skills, although I think he could even be better in that department. He is a guy that can attack the football, make some plays. That said, he also has blitz capabilities, 2 sacks in his career, had a big sack against Sam Ehlinger in his career for a safety. So he is a guy with that 4.4 speed that you can blitz off the edge and be effective with. So that's something else I think he brings to the table as well. And then he has special teams value. This is a guy that served as a kickoff return man. He was an excellent special teams player as a gunner and a guy that would go down and make tackles on kickoffs. So right away, if nothing else, you're getting a core special teamer in Trey Brown, but he may be able to offer you so much more. We'll see. But if you can't get the cornerback play out of him right away, he gives you instant upgrades on special teams, every single one of them. He's that good at it. And if you're in a pinch or you just like his ability, he can give you something on special teams. I saw him return kickoffs and had some big ones to boot. So this is a guy that can offer you some special teams value in a multitude of ways. Weaknesses: habitual assault suspect. He's always being looked at as a suspect to be apprehended by the officials. I look at this guy and I say that he is just way too aggressive. I even came up with a song in my head. I was thinking about Bones Thug and Harmony, and I'm thinking about, it's Trey Thuggish Ruggish Brown. It's Trey Thuggish Ruggish Brown. He's just so gritty and so physical. He's always grabbing, tugging, hugging, and loving. He's going to be flagged a ton if he doesn't clean up his act. Like, I was watching Senior Bowl cut-ups of this guy because people were ranting and raving about how good he was at the Senior Bowl, and he had such a stellar week of practice. And so I wanted to see what all the fuss was about. So I put on a couple of clips in some one-on-one situations. And he's picking off passes and he's making life miserable for these receivers. And I'm like, but there's no officials there calling anything. He is absolutely mugging guys, grabbing them at the top of routes, propelling him towards the football. I'm like, you can't get away with that stuff. That's an easy flag at the next level. Speaking of which, this is a guy that had 14 holding penalties or pass interference penalties over the last 2 years, okay? So I'm telling you, he's a penalty machine, and it's only going to get worse at the next level because I thought there were times where he got away with some things on tape that he wouldn't get away with at the next level. So that's something he's going to have to clean up or else. Period. End of discussion. That's not up for debate. Eye discipline can be spotty at times. He's a guy that, especially when he's in off coverage, he wants to eyeball the quarterback, and he can sometimes lose his luggage. And that's when he starts to say, well, I'm an athlete, so I'll be able to recover. But you don't want to put yourself in those positions. And that's when he gets into the face guarding territory. I can't turn around and look because I don't know where the ball is. I don't want to turn around, miss the ball, and it ends up being a catch. So now he's face guarding. Let's just keep our eyes on our luggage. Yeah, we want to make plays. We want to see where the ball is, want to see where the quarterback's going. Maybe I can make a play. All of that is good. Your first priority is the guy that you're responsible for in your area. So if you've got the deepest third on your side of the field, or you're playing cover 4 and you got the deepest on your quarter of the field, you need to make sure that that guy doesn't get over the top of you. And sometimes he's so busy looking at one of these outbreaking routes from the inside coming out that maybe I can jump it. Now his guy's going up the sideline, and now he's got to try to bust his ass to get back into the play. And if not for an underthrow, you know, there are a couple of times where I think he's smoked for a touchdown. So his eye discipline can be spotty at times. Very short arms. And it's evident in hand-to-hand combat situations and in tackling situations. So what I mean by hand-to-hand combat. So when you get to the line of scrimmage and you want to start chucking a guy, you better have some long arms to be able to get that jam off and then recover, turn, and run. You got short arms, it's going to force you to have to move forward to then get that jam off because you can't get any closer. The ball is there. You can't cross the ball or you're offsides. So there's a distance that you have to be away from that receiver. You got long enough arms. You don't have to overextend yourself to get that jam off. You're right there. You get the jam, you turn and you run. When you've got shorter arms, now you've got to actually come forward with your jam. And if you miss, now you're not only missing, but you're a step behind that receiver to begin with. And he's going to beat you off the line of scrimmage because he just won in that hand-to-hand combat situation at the line of scrimmage. So he's got short arms. There's another place you see it, though, in tackling. I watched him get stiff-armed by a guy, and he little broed him, where he just stiff-armed him, and Trey Brown's arms weren't long enough to box. So he's over there reaching, trying to grab this guy's jersey. Just get a piece of cloth, and this guy is just keeping him at bay with length. And finally, Trey Brown gets sick of it, grabs his arm, and then slings him down violently. But it's not before the guy gains an additional 4 or 5 yards. So there are situations where length is going to come into play for him and really hurt him. He's not a long guy, pause. But again, very athletic, very quick and agile. And then finally, primarily used as a boundary corner, must show his nickel value. I don't like putting guys in a box and saying what they can or can't do. If a guy has shown the ability to do it in college, I'm going to give him every opportunity to prove that he can do it at the pro level. Once I realize, and it's apparent to everybody involved, that he can't do it at a high enough level that is to our satisfaction, then you kick him inside. In the case of a Trey Brown, I'm going to give him every opportunity to show that he can play out wide with the big boys as a boundary corner. The minute that I feel that that is not possible, you then transition him inside to a nickel. Problem is, he doesn't have much nickel experience. And I didn't see any on tape. So there could be some back in 2017 or 2018 or something, in some of the games that I didn't watch. But all the 18 games, 19, and all the 20 games, he was all boundary. So there isn't a ton of experience inside. And I think at 5'10", $185, more likely than not, his future is going to be inside. So that's something to kind of mull over if you're in Seattle. But I've always said that the Seahawks do among one of the best jobs in the league at getting the most out of corners, guys in the secondary in particular. So I think that they may be able to get the most out of Trey Brown. They're going to have to get his hands in check, though, because this is a grabbing mofo. And he's extremely physical, but he's too physical, too grabby. He doesn't trust his skills sometimes. For a guy with his skill set, he shouldn't be feeling the need to put his hands on guys at all times, especially at the point of catch. If you're there, you've done all the work, just turn and find the football. In any event, my player comp for him is a guy that was drafted in the first round last year by the Miami Dolphins, and Noah Igbenogany out of Auburn, another guy that had all the speed, all the quicks, all the ability to be a dominant nickel, but he was extremely handsy for me. We'll see what Noah Igbenogany ends up being in the league. He was more of a boundary corner at Auburn, but they looked at him as probably a nickel at the next level. We'll see what happens with him. I see a lot of the same qualities here in Trey Brown here in the 4th round for the Seattle Seahawks. We'll see what they're able to get out of him in the 4th round. 137th pick overall, cornerback out of Oklahoma. Trey Brown for me is a 3. There's a lot of talent here. There's a lot of potential here, but there are some faults and some things you're going to have to clean up. But all in all, I think you're getting yourself a pretty damn good football player that can help in some capacity right away, whether it be cornerback or on special teams. We go to your 3rd and final selection in this draft. 6th round, 208th overall pick, offensive tackle out of Florida. Stone Forsythe is the pick. 6'8", 307-pound, big behemoth tackle is Stone Forsythe. This is a guy that started in 25 straight games in his career, and had 28 starts overall. So you're getting a guy with some versatility, can play both left and right tackle. 25 of his 28 starts came at the left tackle position, the other 3 at right tackle. So he does have experience on both sides. The left tackle position is where he manned up the last 2 years, did not miss a single start. So you're getting a guy with some durability, which you love at the tackle position. Played in a total of 40 games while at Florida. So, and this is a guy that initially played some guard too. So you do get a little bit of positional flex there, although I'm looking at him and I don't see any guard in his future at all. He is a tackle all day long, all day strong. That said, his strengths: looks the part of an NFL tackle, looks the part of an NFL starting tackle at that. I mean, you don't get 6'8", 310 essentially in the frame that you're getting it with Stone Forsythe. I mean, this is a guy that looks really lean, has a great body in terms of the way it's proportioned. He's not sloppy. He carries it well. Really long arms with 34 and 3/8 inch arms. So he's got everything you're looking for. Tall, long arms, can move adequately. What's not to like there in terms of his frame and his ability to move. So he looks the part of an NFL tackle. Does well with pass pro. That's his strength. If you're looking for the thing he does the best, it's pass pro. Obviously, you'd like to get you an offensive lineman that can do both, right? Run and pass block both efficiently. That's not Stone Forsythe. And so we'll talk about that. But I can tell you this. The one thing that Seattle wants to be able to do better is protect Russell Wilson. Well, Stone Forsythe is going to be able to do that depending on what you're asking him to do. Can move feet well enough, coupled with length, to run rushers around the pocket. So he does a pretty good job of forcing guys to run that arc and not be able to turn the corner, and keeping the integrity of the pocket intact by rushing those speed rushers up the field and not allowing them to turn the corner. But he does not bend well. So when a guy is able to bend at the corner, at the apex of his rush, if he's able to get low, Stone Forsythe can't do that. And you see that at times. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in this breakdown. But he moves his feet well enough to, I think, combat the speed rushers that try to beat him around the corner. And he's got the length that can make up for any lack of foot speed he may have to the edge. He's got some length to make up for it, to help aid him in pushing guys around the pocket. And again, length aids in recovery inside and around. Now, I think he needs to move his feet better inside to protect the B gap a little bit better. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But I think his length does aid him in the ability to close off the B gap somewhat. I don't think it's good enough. I think he needs to move his feet better. But I think his length helps him to do that. And then his length also helps to push guys around the pocket. Anchors extremely well against bull rush. Usually when you see these big trees like Stone Forsythe at 6'7", 6'8", these guys that are humongous, that don't bend well, they are a massive target for guys to just get up under their pads and drive them back, put them on skates, especially if they don't initiate contact first. If they're just absorbing contact, you get a guy with some great leverage and some insane strength, they're going to put this guy on skates. I didn't see that against Stone Forsythe. As a matter of fact, I was actually rather impressed at his ability to just drop the anchor and stop the bull rush altogether. Again, seeing his frame and how lean he is, I just thought he's going to get manhandled a couple times. I didn't really see that. You know, his problem wasn't with bull rushers. It was with guys with quickness and speed. But really impressed with his ability to drop the anchor and not give up the bull rush pressure. Moves well for his size. Again, he's 6'8", 310 essentially. I will say this. When you watch guys like Mekhi Becton and then you watch guys like Stone Forsythe, it reinforces just how special of an athlete Mekhi Becton is. Because he's 6'7", 6'8", whatever he is, 360, and that might be being generous. And he moves like a Mack truck. He moves like a freak athlete, where Stone Forsythe is 50 pounds lighter or so, and he doesn't move anywhere near as good as Mekhi Becton. That said, for a 6'8" guy, he still moves well. Mekhi Becton is the exception to the rule. Stone Forsythe moves really well for his size. Durability. I talked about that already. Guy played in 40 games at Florida, started the final 25 of them. That's what you want. Guys that you can count on that are dependable week in and week out, especially for a Seattle Seahawks team that seems to go through tackles like underwear. You need guys that are going to be there week in, week out. So hopefully this is a guy you draft and he's able to be available. Even if he's not in the lineup, be available week in, week out. And if you put him in the lineup, hopefully he'll be able to stay in the lineup and you don't have to play musical chairs up front. And then bloodlines. His dad played in the NFL as an offensive tackle himself. So this is a guy that has that coursing through his veins as well. His weaknesses. He's upright and he's stiff. I mean, he's 6'8", doesn't bend at the knees. He bends at the hip, doesn't move his feet as much as you would like him to in certain situations. He can't bend. Let's just call a spade a spade. We're going to keep it a buck with one another. I'm watching him against LSU in 2019 against K'Lavon Chaisson, a guy that ultimately ended up being a first-round pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars as a rusher coming off the edge against Stone Forsythe. And Forsythe held his own against K'Lavon Chaisson, but there were two plays in particular that alarmed me to the fact that this guy simply just can't bend. He's 6'8", and this isn't something that is abnormal for a 6'8" guy. It's hard for them to bend. So if you get the edge rusher that has the ability to turn the corner, at that 40, that 90-degree angle, that, 75-degree angle, it's tough for a Stone Forsythe to get down and push him down or push him around. And K'Lavon Chaisson got around him a couple of times, drew a holding penalty on one play, sacked Kyle Trask on another, and had a pressure on another play. So it is what it is. You get a rusher, and I'll give you a great example. Leonard Floyd, I call him Gumby, who plays for the Rams. He's a guy that can bend the corner at these ridiculously crazy angles because of his angular frame and his flexibility. He would give Stone Forsythe all kinds of fits because he'd be able to duck down, turn the corner at a weird low angle, and Stone Forsythe can't get down to him and push him around. Doesn't generate movement one-on-one in the run game due to pad level and the lack of leverage. Again, it's just something you're going to have to deal with. This guy has no nasty in him whatsoever. He's not a nasty boy. There is no KI. I'm not going to kill him for that because, again, I told you, KI isn't a necessity. You would like your offensive lineman to have KI, but it's not a necessity. Bottom line is he just doesn't generate any movement. He's not a physical freak, a physical specimen. He's not a physical guy. And then to add to that, his pad level is always higher than the guy that he's blocking 9 times out of 10. So you're getting into a situation where he's always losing the leverage battle. So the best he can do is prevent a guy from getting to the ball carrier. And I call blockers like him, offensive linemen like him, barrier blockers. He's not a space creator. I call him, you're either a space creator in a run game or you're a barrier blocker. He's a barrier blocker. So he'll put a barrier between the defender and the ball carrier, but he's not creating extra space. You're going to have to do that as a running back yourself. You're going to have to create that space, or you're going to have to get through this tight hole. I'll create a barrier. You're going to have to do the rest. I'm not creating any extra additional space for you to work and make it easy on you. So he doesn't generate a ton of movement in the run game at all whatsoever. He will overset and is not fast enough to redirect and recover to close off the B gap. So sometimes he'll open up because, again, he knows that one of the issues he has is combating speed off the edge. So if K'Lavon Chaisson is preventing that, is providing that threat towards him consistently, then he knows I got to open up my hips to get out there fast enough to prevent him from turning the corner. Now he opens up his hips too soon. He oversets. Now the inside, the gate is open to the inside direct line to the quarterback. And he can't turn his hips back and move his feet fast enough to then close back off that B gap. So now it's a direct line to the quarterback. And that's where you get the holding penalties. That's where you get, if a guy, I think something else he struggles with, when they run twists and stunts, when a guy loops inside and he goes to help, when that other guy comes around, if he's fast enough, he doesn't always get around to that guy, open back up, redirect to that guy fast enough to push him around and widen the pocket back out. So there's some things there that he needs to clean up. He's just got to be a little bit more aware and react faster and try not to open up his hips and overset. Speaking of, being a little hasty at times, he's impatient and will chase defenders. As a pass protector, unless it's a quick 3-step drop, it's quick game, and I got to get into that guy's body so he can't jump, elevate, and bat the ball down. Unless it's one of those situations, you shouldn't be chasing a defensive end or edge rusher or whatever the case may be. You shouldn't be chasing that guy. Let him come to you. If he wants to stand there kind of in a mush rush, okay, let him stand there. Take the play off. I mean, not literally take the play off, but you don't have to contact him. Don't go looking for, the contact there with that guy, because when you do that, you start to lunge. You start to go too far, and now he can beat you. Be patient. Allow that guy to make a move, and then you take the fight to him. Once he starts to come up the field, that's when you take it's almost like drawing a line in the sand. Once he passed that line in the sand, that's when you kick his ass. But if he's going to stay behind that line, you don't need to engage. You don't need to engage. And he'll be hasty. He'll come off the ball. It's a pass set, and yet he's moving forward. You should be getting out of your stance and moving either laterally or backwards, and he's coming forward. I'm like, you don't need to do that, because if that guy swim moves you, because his hands and shoulders are in front of his toes, you're already at a disadvantage when you're doing that, and you're supposed to be pass blocking. So you're already off balance. If that guy gives you a swim move, swaps your hands down, you're done. You can't recover. You're out of the play, and now your quarterback's in a world of trouble if he can't elude that rusher and extend the play. So, there's some things to like with Stone Forsythe. There's some things you don't like. I don't love him in the run game at all whatsoever. I don't love some of the things that he does in terms of being impatient and lunging at defenders. I don't love that he will open the gate to the B gap and not be able to close it off. But all in all, you can't teach what this guy has. And if they've got good offensive line coaches that can work with this guy and get the most out of him, he's got the length, he's got the size, he's got some strong hands, he's got the ability to anchor down, he's got everything you're looking for, especially in the pass game. It'll be interesting to see what Seattle's able to get out of him in the 6th round, 208th pick overall, offensive tackle out of Florida. Stone Forsythe for me is a 3. I see a lot of workable traits and tools with this guy that I think he could ultimately end up being an NFL starter at some point. And that's actually a good find if you're Seattle in the 6th round. We go to the final score of the Seahawks in this draft. Only 3 picks, so not a lot here to write home about. Dwayne Eskridge in the 2nd round is a 5 wide receiver out of Western Michigan. Second pick for the Seahawks is cornerback Trey Brown in the 4th round out of Oklahoma. He's a 3. Stone Forsythe rounds out their draft out of Florida at the tackle position as a 3 as well in the 6th round. 11 points, 3 picks total. You can't get a score for this. I've always said that 6 picks is the minimum in terms of being able to be graded fairly in a draft. This is an incomplete score, so there's no score to be given here, but I do like what they did with their 3 selections in this draft. So that's going to do it for the Seattle Seahawks in their 2021 NFL draft wrap-up. I think they did good with what they had, and I really love the Dwayne Eskridge pickup. I really think he's going to enhance their offense and really make them scary. And, there are rumors out there about Julio Jones. I don't see how that is able to take place and manifest itself, but just imagine if they were able to do that after adding Dwayne Eskridge. That'd be ridiculous in Seattle, honestly speaking. But, just looking at the 3 receivers they have now that they can throw at you with Eskridge, Lockett, and, of course, Metcalf, they've got as much speed as anybody with those 3 receivers in particular as anybody in the league. So this is a dangerous offense, and you've still got Russell Wilson as the maestro kind of stringing it all together. They're going to be dangerous in 2021. I love what they did there. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. Remember, get off the bench, get in the game, and kick it with me, your man Louie T, as we continue to run through these drafts here in the 2021 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series. Until next time, I'm your man Louie T. Have a good one. Take care. See you next time. LouieTeeNetwork.